Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, people online. Okay, welcome to the November Integrative Conservation webinar. So then let me just do a bit of housekeeping and I will pass to our speaker today. So then you know that these webinars happen the first Tuesday of every month, almost every month. Sometimes we change the date and depending on the context. And these webinars are part of the Integrative Conservation work. So Integrative Conservation is the academic journal of Decision Banana Tropical Botanical Garden. And it's a journal that is it's integrative. We publish conservation issues, any kind of taxa, about any kind of level of biological organization in any geography, and preferably in an interdisciplinary way to improve the theory, practice, and policy of conservation. We focus on quality. We make a strong effort to have a high quality review and editorial process. And it's open access. We focus a lot on reducing barriers for publication, particularly being a journal based in China. We are very keen on making sure that things like language are not a barrier. So, for example, we provide in-house language editing for all of our manuscripts, and it is published in open access and without any publication charge at the moment. So then probably in about 1 year and a half, we'll start to charge for publication. In last month, we sponsored a conference on human-wildlife interactions, and two good news: we have been in the index. We have been listed in Scopus and also in PubScholar very recently. So then we publish special issues. We have an ongoing call for papers for a special issue on current and emerging conservation issues in Africa. So if you're working on any topic relevant to conservation in Africa, please consider contributing. If you are interested in guest editing a special issue on any conservation topic, please contact us. We are very much welcoming proposals for new guest editors. And we just published online our first special issue on human-wildlife conflict and coexistence in the context of the Community Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. So if you want to know more about the journal, please follow us on X, on WeChat, on other social media. And if you're interested in our previous webinars, they are posted online in our website. So you can access if you miss any of the previous ones or you want to see anyone again. So let's go to today's seminar. Today we have a very distinguished speaker, Dr. Nura Abdul Karim. Nura is the Deputy Director of the Singapore Botanic Garden. She has a PhD in Science Horticulture by the University of Western Australia, and she has over 25 years of experience at the Botanic Garden in Singapore. I will keep things short. She has played many roles in the Botanical Gardens, has been very innovative and creative to do different things, to reach out to more people and to make the Botanic Garden more connected in different ways and more effective. She's a key member of the Southeast Asia Botanic Gardens network and is one of the Singapore Botanic Garden representatives of the International Advisory Council of Botanic Garden Conservation International, or BGCI. So then, as you know, we are a botanical garden, and we are very pleased to have Nura talking today about challenges to conserving Southeast Asia flora, insights from a Southeast Asia Botanic Garden Network committee member. So after Nora's presentation, her presentation will go for 35-40 minutes. I will invite Professor Yang Yongping, Director of XTBG, to join us. We'll have a little discussion, a panel on conserving flora in Southeast Asia, and particularly the role of botanical gardens and how can be an agent for conservation. This talk is being live streamed in different platforms. So we have people on Zoom, a small audience today, and we have people on co-share, and the presentation will be recorded and posted on our website after that. So then, without any further delay, Dr. Nura Abdul Karim, thank you very much. Welcome on stage.
Thank you, Amhilsa, for the introduction. I'm very happy to be here and to be given the opportunity to give this presentation to you all. So my presentation is titled Challenges of Conserving Southeast Asia Flora, Insights from a member of the Southeast Asia Botanic Garden Network Committee. I want to emphasize that the insights and the observations I share today are my own and do not represent any institutional views. While this presentation may revisit very familiar themes among us, my aim is to highlight the pressing challenges faced by the Botanic Garden community and inspire administrators, researchers, and leaders to rethink and innovate solutions. It is critical that we explore new approaches and drive actionable changes together. From my participation in the Southeast Asia Botanic Garden Network for many years, I recognize that meaningful change takes time and unfolds in stages. Initiating it is essential. And more importantly, maintaining sustainable momentum is critical for conserving biodiversity in this region. So, as we all know, tropical region is home to significant majority of the world's biodiversity, with an estimate of around 80% of all species found in this tropical region. This includes a vast variety of plants, animals, and microorganisms. The high level of species diversity and endemism in the tropics contribute to their reputation as the most biologically rich area on Earth. Sadly, such statements are often followed by remarkable statistics about the rapid degradation and conversion of the tropical ecosystems and the alarming prediction of widespread flora and fauna species extinction. And this is further supported by the recent COP16 outcome. So we are not really moving forward. We are kind of like in a plateau at the moment. So we need to see how best to think differently and how to approach these challenges that I will present. So as you know, 80% of all species on Earth are in the tropics. And then in the Malaysian biodiversity hotspot alone, there is over 45,000 species of vascular plant diversity. And from reports by the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform and Biodiversity Ecosystem Services, as well as Nature, Ecology and Evolution, we know that around 1 million plants and animals are now threatened with extinction, and up to 571 plant species have gone extinct in the last 250 years. Plant extinction rate is 500 times greater now than before the Industrial Revolution, at an estimated rate of loss of nearly 3 species per year since 1900s. Since all living things are interdependent on each other in this web of life, the loss of diversity will result, plant diversity will result in mass extinction of many lives, both known and yet to be discovered species on Earth. There are concerns that the estimates in many studies do not account for true extinction rate of plants, which could be much higher than reported, as our knowledge of many of the plant species, particularly the tropical ones, remains limited. The true extinction rate of plants is definitely something that needs to be addressed. The complexity of diversity and its conservation highlights the need for comprehensive monitoring and research into better statistical and predictive modeling methods of analyzing biodiversity data to take into account underdocumented, unknown, or unrecorded species. By accounting for the unrecorded species, we may gain a clearer understanding of the current rate of loss and avoid presenting inflated figures of biodiversity decline, enabling us to be more effective in addressing the challenges faced in the ecosystem and the species today. As we all know, the reasons for biodiversity losses worldwide are complex, and various factors and stresses interact interdependently. Anthropogenic and natural environmental stresses are the primary causes. Anthropogenic impact arise from a complex range of social, economic, political, and biological factors. So some of the things here you listed, you will have seen it and we've read it many, many times. So in Southeast Asia, we are no different. We are listed as the biodiversity hotspot by the Critical Ecosystem Partnership Fund. Various studies have indicated that in general, the tropical zone holds a much higher species diversity than in the temperate zone. Estimated 50,000 flowering plant species are in Southeast Asia, with flowering plants constituting approximately 96% of the world vascular plants. It is not surprising that with such high diversity of species, the Southeast Asian Botanic Gardens and other botanical institutions in this region are bound to face with many challenges in their efforts to conserve the region's flora, as well as its fauna. The challenges are complex and some are unique to the individual country. The problems definitely cannot be solved overnight or even independently by the individual countries alone. There is a need to review what efforts have been done in Southeast Asia for the last 30 years, as plant diversity continues to decline at an alarming rate. Efforts to mitigate this decline are obviously still inadequate, and how we do things, such as documenting, educating, and collaborating, might have to be re-examined and adjusted. The following slides attempts to highlight some of the key challenges in conserving regional flora, as well as institutional challenges faced by botanic gardens and organizations in this region. The insights are drawn from discussions and meetings, both formal and informal, with various colleagues from the botanic gardens community. So, as you all know, Southeast Asia is rich in culture, ethnic, and language diversity. So given this region's rich culture, ethnic, and language diversity, there's a clear need for a unifying language within the country itself, as well as regionally and internationally. So for regional cohesiveness, each country has already some mother tongue that they use as a connecting language, like for China will be Mandarin. And then for Malaysia will be Bahasa Melayu. And then for Indonesia is Bahasa Indonesia. So these are the kind of things that is already done regionally. In country, sorry. But for region, there is still a lot of work to be done. And I would propose that English be the main language, not to say that it's better than others, but it's already a well-known fact that 1.6 billion people speak this language, and it's already known as a global lingua franca. So it would be wise for governments and educators to teach the young English as the key language to move collaboration and connectivity forward. So the next problem is, of course, I always hear is that there's insufficient people and government support in the region. There is some support, but still it's a long way away. So, and then one major issue for plants, especially this phenomenon called plant blindness. Plant blindness is a form of cognitive bias, which is in its broadest sense, is a human tendency to ignore or underappreciate plant species. This phenomenon is pretty widespread amongst the majority of city dwellers and administrators regionally as well as worldwide, who are quite disconnected with nature and in its importance in lives and livelihoods. So this will affect your policy and how you handle plants and the people. Lack of awareness. Government and public have not fully understood the complexities and implications of biodiversity issues and its effects on economies as well as the quality of daily lives. That's further aggravated by the fact that many scientists, unfortunately, find it a struggle to explain biodiversity issues and importance of their work in simple terms that connect the layman to their work. This in turn leads to public apathy and indifference to plant diversity on conservation needs and its importance. So management challenges are also quite evident in Southeast Asia. Many protected areas and reserves are compromised by inadequate management plans, or when such plans exist, the implementation is weak. This leads to failures of authorities and states in preventing detrimental, harmful activities by local communities and private companies in the preserved areas. So there is definitely a change. People's appreciation and attitudes toward nature, especially plants, need to change. More outreach is required to engage apathetic individuals on the importance of plants. And also messaging on the importance of biodiversity and its benefits to the man himself and his environment must resonate to everybody to inspire action and to get the support we need. Regional conservation issues are dominant everywhere. So, as mentioned, tropical flora in diversity is great in Southeast Asia, and it covers large areas with many still unexplored. Baseline data about the regional flora is sadly lacking, and there are serious gaps in our knowledge of taxonomy, distribution, ecology, phenology, threat analysis, and conservation status of the tropical flora. General collection and documentation of tropical flora needs to increase in hotspot nations before catastrophic habitat loss occurs. Monographic treatments exist for only a fraction of tropical families in this region. Major initiatives to identify and document the flora, such as the Flora Malaysiana project, which started in 1950s, are rare, and progress has been excruciating slow due to the project's extensive scope and limited funding and expertise. Encouragingly, though, ongoing efforts like the Flora of Thailand, Flora of Malaysia, Flora of Sabah and Sarawak, and Flora of Singapore contribute valuable scientific knowledge in a slightly faster timescale than massive Flora Malaysiana project. New technologies, such as leveraging the internet and creating e-resources for collaborative sharing of literature, herbaria vouchers, genetic data, aim to expedite this project. By focusing on in-country flora, it is hoped to accelerate the documentation and understanding of the region's vast flora diversity. Other issues that are faced by this region includes conservation, collection, recovery, restoration, and reintroduction of endangered and threatened species, which may not always be done efficiently, if at all. Regionally, there is shortage of trained horticulturists, propagators, taxonomists and botanists, and field collectors, as well as the plant materials itself. Additionally, some countries struggle with limited land availability for conservation use and obtaining support to establish proper botanic gardens or arboretum to do the kind of work that we need to reach out to the public. The lack of expertise, lack of plant collection, combined with inadequate or poor implementation and management of conservation initiatives, is also hindering large-scale preservation of the region's flora. There is technically lack of coordinated efforts locally, nationally, regionally, and internationally to collect, identify, document, and grow those plants, as well as collecting data of the regional flora that is still scant and inadequate. It is also noted that the low levels of cooperation and collaboration between developed and underdeveloped and developing countries in the region needs to be done and improved and increased. There's a lack of unified platform to reach out and discuss issues on regional plant conservation problems and the successes among botanical practitioners and to the masses. So there's a bit of a disjoint. People don't know what you're doing, and you cannot get the support that you need to get the funds and the needed other trainings that needs to be maintained. So next is the problem of inadequate skills and knowledge of tropical plant species. The prevailing challenge facing botanic gardens and institutions of botany is the shortage of skilled staff in botany and horticulture, coupled with inadequate knowledge and experts in the tropical plant sciences as staff retires or move on to other things. Worldwide funding are inadequate for studies and research in traditional botany, such as taxonomy and horticulture. Such old school sciences are considered not cutting edge compared to molecular genetics, genomics, phylogenetics, bioinformatics, nanotechnology, AI, and are not funded greatly, if at all, by universities and research organizations. The decline of plant botany and plant sciences as a distinct discipline is alarming. In many botanical departments and institutions, of botany are closing and all are scaled down significantly worldwide. This trend persists despite growing recognition of the need of training and research to support advances in agriculture, horticulture, and integrated taxonomy, especially in addressing the urgent challenges of understanding and identifying species and documenting the rapidly declining plant diversity in the region. Overall, everything is slowed down because we do not know what we have. Lack of experts in horticulture is needed to grow, trial and document plant propagation and germination, and to develop best growth protocols is another hurdle. It's all good and well when you do about ecology and all that, but you still need the person to grow it and to be able to find the materials that you need to restore the degraded habitats or to maintain the habitats that is degrading. So shortage of horticulture affects the work of safeguarding the plant and to produce plants to meet the restoration requirements to improve degradation of habitats. Currently, no global database is available to share propagation or germination protocols or even phenology records of plant species to boost the knowledge and requirements to increase propagation of endangered species for conservation purposes. Singapore Botanic Gardens and Southeast Asia Botanic Garden Networks recently launched the phenology consortium, and XCBG is one of the members, and also Malaysia and Indonesia. So we are just starting a very preliminary one. So hopefully we will get more interest from regional botanic gardens. We are basically doing phenology studies of ex situ plant species within our collection, which is easier to maintain as opposed to going into the nature reserves. So hopefully these are baseline top subjects that will help the data, will help you to figure out what kind of environment is best suited or what is triggering flowering early or death of plants and all that. These are all important things if you want to keep growing your plants. So there is significant opportunity for collaborative research projects focused on seeds and germination collection, storage, cryopreservation, and growth protocols of tropical plant species, as these areas remains under-researched and poorly documented in the tropics. The next one is, of course, the all-important thing, the dollars, inadequate resources and funds. As repeatedly mentioned, poor understanding of biodiversity and its importance are still prevalent in this region among its people, its government, and corporations. Biodiversity-rich countries continue to face high biodiversity loss rates, despite the recognition of their key importance. Inadequate funding and resources, including manpower and infrastructure, remain significant barriers to have an effective global biodiversity conservation. In Southeast Asia, government allocation for conservation and botanical research are insufficient to advance these efforts at a steady and meaningful rate. For many underdeveloped or developing countries, overseas aid is and will continue to be the main source of funding. So there is an urgent need for significant increase in biodiversity-linked aid, as well as mobilizing of financial resources from both domestic and international sources. Establishing a central regional funding pool supported by strong governance and accountability measures could be a possible solution. It is essential to implement robust oversight on the utilization and disbursement of these funds to prevent misuse or underutilization of the valuable resources that is given. So this will create confidence in corporations, perhaps, who wish to give you money. If this lacks, then it's going to be a very tough road for us to move on without money. So inadequate funding interacts with several other factors as well, which aggravates the situation in this region, such as poor governance, lack of financial transparency, infrastructure insufficient infrastructure and management, as well as unstable political environment, and which leads to weak policy framework and even corruption, which further hinders the conservation and protection efforts of important habitats from overexploitation or destruction. Like I mentioned earlier, the key thing I noted from many things in Southeast Asia is that we have a very weak collaboration and coordination. So what can we do about this? Botanic gardens and botanical institutions in Southeast Asia globally are uniquely positioned to address some of the challenges highlighted earlier. This includes training the next generation of plant scientists, especially botanists and horticulturists, as well as to get fieldwork, production of user-friendly field guides, collation of phenology records, as well as developing propagation protocols and long-term support and succession planning for critical skills and expertise required for sustainable plant conservation work. Botanic Garden can serve as a portal for education outreach, translating botanical science into layman's terms to engage the public and connect them to the importance of plant conservation. By addressing these areas, we can significantly advance conservation efforts and foster a broader understanding of botanical science to the masses. We all know there's high bureaucracy here, so even China, Singapore, you name it, everybody has very strong political bureaucracy that we have to overcome to do our work, our daily work. So bureaucratic hindrance is definitely a major complaint amongst botanists, horticulturists, and also I think friends from doing animal research as well. And expediting research requests is something crucial, but unfortunately not going to happen with bureaucracy. So permit approval, especially for example, takes very long time to get approval to move plants or to go in to do collection. When multilateral treaties such as the CBD or Convention on Biological Diversity was first established in December 1993, the convention had three main goals, which included conservation of biological diversity, the sustainable use of its components, and the fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising from the genetic resource. However, the CBD regulations and provisions for asset and benefit sharing, although meant to ensure sustainable use of biological and genetic resources and equitable benefit sharing for all parties involved, has proven to be too cumbersome and frustrating to understand and implement to non-Western countries such as Southeast Asia. This political will for implementation of the provisions has to compete with resources of other equally demanding priorities in countries such as health, education, industrial, and infrastructure development. So another problem with the convention regulation is how it's expressed in ambiguous or vague language. So legal language can be a major hurdle for a lot of us laymen, even if we are good in English. The way that it's written always allows you what I would say as escape clauses or clauses that doesn't define 100% as you would like it. It might be so vague that everybody has a way of defining it. It's nothing wrong. So such legalistic language is hard to comprehend by the English speakers themselves, let alone non-English speakers. And remember, Southeast Asia has thousands of dialects and languages. And the convention is also fraught with vague commitments. They're never, ever binding. So it's always open for interpretation and acceptance. And there is, like I said, escape clauses. If you know what you're looking at and you know law well enough, this permits avoid obligations. There also seems to be undue politicization of the instrument of the convention, where delegations that attend high-level decision-making meetings are usually comprised of politicians and professional negotiators. Rarely will there be scientists. So this might jeopardize the CBD, especially on the excess of materials, where you cannot fight for the rights of general bona fide researchers. They are thinking on a higher level in terms of countrywide importance, which is not wrong, but it's also causing problems for you to move on forward with the things that you are lacking now. So this is something we need to work with the politicians. So in short, the challenges outlined call for innovative and effective solutions. Southeast Asia botanical practitioners and botanic gardens must explore new approaches to overcome the obstacles and enhance existing strategies. Contribution from local practitioners from various disciplines will be invaluable in driving effective positive change. So, can we overcome the challenge? The challenges are complex and intertwined. So, collaboration is one of the key efforts that needs to be done, and no one should be doing it in an isolated manner. The phrase "no man is an island" reflects well the importance of collaboration and partnership in addressing the region's plant conservation challenges, highlighting the need of botanic gardens community and public and private sectors to work together. One of the key solutions that need to be promoted and improved definitely is collaboration and coordination amongst the botanic gardens, forestry agencies, NGOs, academic institutions, as well as organized botanical networks. Botanic gardens plays a very crucial and often overlooked role because it has been in the world, gardens all over the world has been in hundreds of years it has been developed. So it has always been a place for reaching out to people. So they have a very major role to play. Collectively, botanic gardens are entrusted scientific and cultural organization with appealing recreational value. So they can attract people to come. So we should use that. BGs worldwide employ over 60,000 experts in horticulture, taxonomy, conservation, and public education. Collectively, botanic gardens host around 500 million visitors a year. Botanic gardens also are known to be repositories of living plant biodiversity and has conserved about a third of the known plant species. Botanic gardens conserves native plants, ornamentals, many crop plants, and their wild relatives, either in planted or outdoor settings, such as glass houses or greenhouses. They also have seed and germplasm banks and tissue culture labs. During the recent Global Botanic Garden Congress in Singapore this year, the network of botanic gardens around the world have been called upon to increase the collective impact to ensure that no rare or threatened plant species become extinct and to collaborate further, more effectively. There is therefore an opportunity to engage and teach different spectrum of visitors about plants and its importance in relation to human and environment, and promoting sustainability must be and already have been carried out by many botanic gardens. Botanic gardens in most developed countries usually utilize simplest form of interpretation signages, garden talks, guided tours, and festivals to highlight the rapid decline of biodiversity due to human activities and impart the importance and value of sustainable use of local flora. Underdeveloped and developing countries should take this as a key thing. It's nothing super expensive. Simple stuff, you can reach out to people. Besides Botanic Garden, global botanical organizations like the Botanic Garden Conservation International, BGCI, and regional botanic garden networks such as the Southeast Asia Botanic Garden Network are also very important and crucial in taking the lead to coordinate and adopt an intermediary role for matching the training and research needs of the region's underdeveloped and developing nations to more developed counterparts. An example of a global collaboration is the Global Conservation Consortia, facilitated by the BGCI Southeast Asia Botanic Gardens Network. This initiative brings together experts from regional botanic gardens and NGOs to improve and expedite assessments of key tropical plant species, namely Diplodocus, Ebenaceae, Fagaceae, and Magnoliaceae, to develop better living collection networks for the conservation of important tropical rainforest species. And I understand STBG is the home for the consortia for Diplodocus. And I also heard that it's not very active. It's still work in progress. So such consortia have proven to be successful in fostering collaboration and expediting species assessments and the sharing of knowledge of specific plants, families, and species. So as we all know, Botanic Garden is suited to serve as an important center for ex situ conservation of flora. The Garden Search database of Botanic Gardens, BGCI, lists about 3,570 Botanic Gardens globally, and slightly over 70 Botanic Gardens are located in Southeast Asia. The database, although not capture full data or accurate data, is a first step to understand how many Botanic Gardens there are in the world. So because there is no central authority capturing numbers of actual, active, and true Botanic Gardens locally, regionally, and globally. So with this knowledge is enough to tell us that it's still insufficient. There is still lack of Botanic Gardens in this hotspot. So we need to start looking at whether it's while all Southeast Asian countries do not have a botanic garden, which is the truth. So it's surprising, but it's true. This should not impede conservation work. So other government agency that deals with conservation and biodiversity should attempt to develop one. And this has been seen recently in Southeast Asia, where BGCI has already been called upon by places like Philippines and Indonesia, Laos, Vietnam, to help them to create working botanic gardens, not just a park, but an actual proper botanic gardens that does work on conservation. So that's the first step. It's a long way. They always say it's like still not enough money. So we'll see how it goes. So local researchers should also get involved to lobby and persuade their governments to develop a botanic garden and support nature-loving philanthropists to start up a botanic garden and assist these benefactors to overcome potential bureaucratic red tapes. Without the presence of botanic gardens, the local forestry agencies and even lead regional universities could develop botanic gardens or take on certain roles of a botanic gardens. For example, in Borneo, we have the Sabah Forestry Department, and it's an impressive rainforest discovery center in Sipaluk. And then in Brunei, the University of Brunei Darussalam and its botanical garden and research center. Such organizations have developed outreach education programs and could go further to create innovative science projects to reach out to schools and public to get involved in botanical conservation work, such as floristic inventories, phenology surveys, wildlife monitoring, and even plant propagation work. A good success story of citizen science program and conservation and volunteerism is in Singapore, my country, where there is a number of citizen science projects overseen by the National Parks Board, which is the parent organization of SBG, Botanic Garden, where we train the public and then they move on to lead the surveys. So every year, every month, they come and do monitoring and survey and feed the data back into our database, major plant and wildlife database biome. So such surveys of charismatic wildlife is very popular with public because they like to see cute animals. So the otters and the dragonflies became key to start the project. And then also volunteering. There's a lot of people out there who likes to grow plants, but because we are in an urban setting for Singapore, we don't have much land. It's an opportunity to get their hands dirty and grow and see things grow. So it's very popular. So we managed to get a lot of people to volunteer to be either guides. If they don't want to get dirty, they can just do guiding, or they can go right into lab work even, or into the nurseries to propagate and grow plants. So following what I had previously mentioned, besides botanic gardens, botanic garden network regionally and globally are important to the work towards conserving regional biodiversity. BGCI Southeast Asia Botanic Gardens Network, established in 2004, is an important group with great potential to assist in the cause of conserving regions' flora. SEABG was established to support and promote the region's botanic gardens work and enhance the conservation and sustainable use of indigenous flora, which while also offering targeted training to address the needs of the botanical institutions. SEABG organizes regular biannual meetings in collaboration with the regional botanic gardens to keep us up to date with each other's work. Unfortunately, there's no continued representation from each institution. If we keep changing the person who attends without bringing new people, also is not good. So you tend to talk to already the converted or people who already been complaining for ages. So what we need to do is when we have this kind of meeting, we should be introducing youngsters as well, the mid-level officers to come along. So this is something that needs to be done across the region. Through working with BGCI, SEABG assists members to link with other botanical gardens worldwide and botanical associations and even NGOs to develop collaborative project proposals to obtain funds from international foundations such as the Global Botanic Garden Fund, which is mainly for BGCI members, and also Darwin Initiative and the Foundation Frankliniana, which does a lot of conservation work, and National Biogeographic Society program and others. So armed with an overview knowledge of current regional conservation issues, SEABG network members can highlight and suggest initiatives in drawing out conservation projects of targeted species and seek relevant training and promote research projects between regional botanic gardens, as well with established ones globally. Furthermore, a unified voice among the regional practitioners will, facilitated by the network like BGCI, can more effectively engage government bodies and leverage mass media to disseminate significant information and findings about the region's flora, ultimately impacting the community and the environment. It is hoped in the future, a more cohesive and active SEABG network members could represent regional botanic gardens researchers, sharing important botanical research, assessments, conservation efforts through traditional and social media. A stronger collaborative network would also strengthen applications for limited global funding for flora conservation, reducing competition among institutions. So there is unlimited fund, but it becomes limited when everybody wants to pick some funds from there, when you could work together and have a better, bigger project that could just get from the same funding. So these are things that we should think about. So to put aside egos and all that, for the sake of your plants, you should start thinking differently. So in conclusion, challenges in conserving of Southeast Asian flora is complex and dependent on many factors: political, cultural, and financial. This region's population and governments are rather, sadly saying, apathetic to the decline of their country's rich biodiversity, as there are always other more pressing challenges needed to overcome, such as job creation, health, education, basic infrastructure, and for the people, their daily livelihood. It is therefore important to impress upon the population that conserving plants and understanding the value can lead to significant socio-economic benefits, including job creation in emerging new scientific fields and enhance people's overall well-being. Education outreach about conservation and restoration of habitats and the importance of horticulture and botany to the community, young and old, must be improved, enhanced through the stewardship of botanical gardens and other botanical institutions. Collaboration between botanic gardens and traditional partners such as forestry agency, academic institutions, and NGOs must be increased and promoted through organized regional and international network, such as the SEABG and BGCI. To move beyond traditional approaches on conservation work, we now also need multidisciplinary partnership that integrate engineering, analytics, modeling, computer science, digitization, social psychology, skilled writers, and even education, fundraising, and public relations experts to enhance efficiency, advance current initiatives, and effectively engage broader audiences and potential funders for the costly task of conserving regional flora. The voices of the regional and international botanical practitioners must be amplified, and these researchers need to be more proactive in the role so that they can reach out in all available forums to drive impactful conservation efforts. The message used needs to highlight the plant's plight and its importance, must resonate with the common people for them to take action and support. And with that, I would like to thank XTBG, Professor Yongping Yang, Professor Amin Shah, and Lai Tai Singh, and everybody and staff of STBG and SIBRI for facilitating my visit and making this talk possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nura. We will move now to a panel format, and I would like to invite Professor Yang Yongping to join Dr. Nura Karim in the States. We'll have a brief discussion. So then people both in the room and online, if you have questions, you have a chance to present your questions. Just people online, just write your question in the chat box. People in the room, just raise your hand when I invite you. And
Oh no.
thank you very much, Nura. I will be checking my phone because of questions online. I'm just checking for comments. So then, yeah, very interesting perspective from the botanical garden perspective that it's very relevant to us. I think it's fair to say that Singapore Botanic Gardens and XTBG are two of the leading botanical gardens in the region. I was very surprised that there are only 70 botanical gardens in Southeast Asia. It's about 2% of the number of botanical gardens in an area that has 4 biodiversity global hotspots, and it has so much diversity. So there's huge scope to have more botanical gardens. We recently went to Indonesia, and we heard that every province is planning to have a small botanic garden. That's an interesting initiative. And one of the universities in Padang, Andalas University, is trying to develop its own botanic garden. But I guess that institutions like Singapore Botanic Gardens and XTBG can play a big role helping to establish new botanical gardens. They don't need to be very big, having something that is the culture, establish the capacity. So then what I think is a new opportunity, a low-hanging fruit to work with particular countries, particular areas, where you think that both Singapore and XTB could help in this area? Maybe Professor Yongping first.
Yes, it's in China. So we are leading. Before we called the Union of the Chinese Botanical Garden, and now we changed the name. It's called an initiative for it's a conservation initiative for the Chinese Botanical Garden, but it's the same. So far, we have the 120 is a member, and yeah, especially recent year when the China try to scale up the national botanical garden, and it's a lot of the local government actually they have showed a great interest. Oh, we want a new botanical garden, and we have land, we have the support. Yeah, this is a I want to say it's really the more the prefecture, even it's the cities and also provincial government showed interest for the botanical garden. In the coming years, I'm sure in China will more. Especially from the development area like the Eastern China, and will more botanical gardens will coming. But the one thing is I know it's somehow a little bit a knowledge gap, or you can say information gap. The policymaker thinking it's the botanical garden is a one-time investment. that they can invite billions for this establishment, but usually they don't really thinking carefully about its maintenance. The second is the research. You know, it's we always said it's a botanical garden without the research. It's a park. Yeah, even it's in a city park. So that means it's the when I discuss with the state policymaker, I always encourage them is you have to thinking more is how to maintenance and how to keep the research and the science is active. So this is the issues. So I mean, in the some developing country also have the same problem is because it's limited is the financial support. It's very difficult to maintain the research, and if not research, then it's somehow like it's a cynical spot. So that's the issues. And also my keywords is in the coming years probably is more botanical garden in China, especially from the developed Eastern China. But the issues is we need more investment for the maintenance and therefore it's the promote the research.
Yeah, for Botanic Gardens Singapore, we are 165 years, so it's like well known in this region. So lots of people come through, even Western countries have come to the gardens to take a leaf from us to see what we are up to. So basically, like Young said, it's like more countries in the region are now seeing the importance of botanic gardens, but I also fear that some of these governments may not have a full understanding of what a true botanic garden should be. They may be building it and glorifying it to be a botanic garden, but when you go in there, it's like there's no proper research, like Professor Young has said. It's like there's lack of research. The plants are not documented, so and there's no real conservation when you don't have documentation of the plants and you don't use the plants for anything but just beautiful landscaping and good Instagram spots. So these are important things that policymakers must also remember, that when you build this, it costs a bomb. You need to figure out maintenance, but you also need to figure out the aim of having that botanic garden.
So if you have unlimited funding, I give you lots of money, and I tell you can make 3 botanical gardens anywhere in the region. Do you have any priorities? You know, which countries or which regions or which eco-regions you think there is more need to develop new botanical gardens? 3.
Oh, gosh. I'd say Borneo would be one that you need to keep an eye on, and then not trying to be smart. Indochina, it also has good flora, and then under the landlocked Laos is also something that's under investigated or surveyed. Two, Indochina. And the next one is probably places like Kalimantan, Papua.
Okay.
The Malaysian, Indonesian Papua.
Okay.
So these are areas that I think there is still lots to be discovered and to understand what are the animal and plant life there. And I'm almost certain you would probably find new species there which we have never seen before, or maybe families that might not be in the traditional known families that you have been studying all these hundreds of years. Because if you haven't discovered it, how would you know there is no new families that doesn't fall into, whereas the genetics now, you probably could figure that out. It's like, it doesn't really match that. It doesn't really match this. So you might create some new families also, but very little. But important thing is to survey it before it gets lost.
Do you have any three priorities?
Probably I don't know. It's Southeast Asia. Probably I would say a little bit China.
China, you first say.
Yeah.
Okay.
First, it's in the Tibetan Plateau.
Yeah.
And the government is now so far, it's especially we call the Southwestern Mountain area. That region is also is a biodiversity hotspot. Actually, it is subalpine and alpine region. So far, we don't have a good botanical garden. So, for instance, we proposed in the Lingzhi, it's the southeastern part of the Tibetan Plateau, and this is a very rich diversity, but they don't have the botanical garden. So this should be the one. We said it's the subalpine. This is a transition between the southwestern China mountains and also Eastern Himalaya. So this region, I think, is probably is important. The second is actual XTBG is working for the Jingdong Botanical Garden, and this is very special. It's we say it's a subtropical. It's the southwestern part of China. But now the garden is already open, but probably we need more is the support for the research. So for the team up of the research. So this is probably the two places I think is very important.
Thank you very much. So, Nura, you were talking about the flora of Thailand, the flora of Malaysiana, flora of Sabah, flora of Sarawak. Will we see in the near future a flora of Southeast Asia? Maybe something online that is comprehensive and.
Well, now it's like computer, IT, internet is there. So it's like once you publish the flora, like what Singapore has done, it's like print it online. So it's already building up one portion of the region's flora. So Malaysia has also put in their clearing houses where they have already put in the things that they've studied. So by collating all this, instead of trying to find one big project like Flora Malaysiana actually isn't really working in a way because it's such a monumental thing, and it's 1950s and we are now in 2003, they still haven't finished. So, and experts have passed on. There's no newer experts coming in. Funding is dwindling. So these are already issues. Will it continue to the end? But do you have an end when it comes to plant conservation? Plants live forever and new science come in. You keep reviewing your collection and you keep renaming your collection. So there's always this actively changing, moving, not fast, but still moving. So like Flora Malaysiana 1960s collection needs to be revised by now, but there's nobody to revise that first. So they move forward with the other families. But someone must go back again to start looking at it with the new sciences that has come into play. So these are issues, like I would say, regionally, you should do it because it's fairly faster, I would say, compared to something if you centralize for the region.
Bottom up, a bit
but
atomized.
When you do that, doesn't mean it must be only in-house. You must invite everybody in, and you must allow the ability and to move plants out, and so you need to also understand you need to do bed hedging in order to conserve. You can't keep it in country. If you move it out, if anything happens to your collection, somebody else has it, they can repatriate it back to you. And like that little water lily from Africa that is cute good, and they brought it back, and then now it's flourishing. So botanic gardens can play a good part, but people don't see them or hear those stories. So, and then the politicians don't pick that up. So there's something that needs to, we are not just a beautiful place to have picnic and enjoy the plants and fresh air. So there's more to it in the botanic gardens.
Comment on the flora.
Probably I will say it's a Flora of China story. And the first editorial meeting is in the 1959. It's almost the same years with the XTBG. The first editorial. And then we spent 4 decades finish the Chinese version. It's a Flora of China. And I think it's more than 300 taxonomists and then it's more than 100. It's like the printer or the dryer. Yeah. So, so finally, the last book is published in the 2004. I was joined the like the press conference, and after that is we spent 20 years to finish the Flora of China's English and the revised version. It is supported by the Professor Peter Raven, the director, the president of the Missouri Botanical Garden, and also the Chinese Professor Wu Zhengyi and Professor Wu Hongdian and some other. It's 20 years. The first wish, the Chinese edition is the most based on the literature and also some collection. The biggest lack is to check the type specimen, because most type specimen is in the North America and Europe, the herbarium. So that time is the most the Chinese taxonomist is based on the literature, based on the collection, and so that's the issues. So when we're doing the Flora of China, each family we have the two authors. One is we said is the well-known taxonomist, and the other is the Chinese, and the two work together. And all of the every taxa is a two. Is the one the international, one is the domestic. So this is also I think somehow it's much improved one the Flora of China. But one thing now we have realized is that we have the flora, but the land use, land coverage change. We don't know if it existed here. Let's say it's if the 50 years ago it's collected in this around the botanical garden, and now you go there, it's only rubber plantations. I think now it's China. We are always encourage the policymaker. We need like the re-expo, and we need more the collection data and to see what it is. So I'm sure it's a number of the collection, the locality is changed. So this is so when you have the Flora of China, and when you have the data site, but actually the plants is not in. The plants is disappear. The locality is not make sense. So this is so we are talking is the next volume is the probably is based on is more is update the expedition and the collection.
Which links to the very frequent discussion, the lack of incentives to do this kind of work, and the lack of rewards for people. There's not enough people to do this kind of work, collection and classification, taxonomy and description of these things. And it's the works that are often not incentivized in the right way. So then if you're a researcher, you have to publish high-level papers, and this is not. So it's important to create mechanisms to reward this work. So we're going to open to the floor. And people online, if you want to make any question, you can just type in the chat box. Remember to type in your name and your affiliation. And for people in the room, if you have any question, just raise your hand, and again, say who you are for the audience. Nura, we had around more than 800 people clicking on the online stream. We don't know how many people actually. We don't know how many humans is. We don't know how many clicks, but there were up to over 100 people at some point. And before I take questions, so you can raise your hands, I found interesting to talk about language. 600 languages in Southeast Asia, over 1,000 languages. Yeah, and here we are 3 people with none of us. I assume your native language is Bahasa Malay, Chinese, Spanish, speaking in English. I think it's very important to have that common language. But very soon, tools will help to communicate much easier. So some barriers are going to be overcome forever. I think that some of these things are really important. We'll be able to deal with them. You want to?
Yeah, probably I will ask the questions for the Dr. Karim. Yeah, I was very curious. It's about how to maintain the network and it's you have the Southeast Asia Botanical Garden Network, and every 2 years you have it's a meeting. Also, you have a manager some the training courses. It's where is the finance come from? It's you apply for the international grant, or they have it's a co-funding.
Southeast Asia Botanic Garden is actually overseen by BGCI.
Okay.
So they actually hire a Southeast Asia coordinator.
Mhm.
So then they will. So they BGCI is actually overseeing the Southeast Asia network. So they fund the Southeast Asia Botanic Garden Network coordinator. So someone who will reach out to the gardens that are in their databases and we'll try to start talking to them. So they do projects and they get approached by the region's forest department, because not like I said, not all Southeast Asia botanic gardens have a proper botanic gardens. So ended up it's like they also work with forestry department and NGOs. So then they will look through the project proposal that comes to them and then see if it's in line with what they have, and then together they will work out a paper proposal. And then because BGCI has some big organizations that's funding them, but it's very limited also. So because they also cover Africa, South America, so all the tropical hotspot they try to. So money is not there 100%. So they have to move around to make sure that all these tropical areas that is affected by the land loss and species loss get a piece of it. And unfortunately, money is not always there. So they normally get from like Foundation Franklinia seems to be okay with giving some funds. Darwin Initiative is major supporter of BGCI's main fundings. And with all organizations, you can't just be looking at funding from such organization or foundation. You also need to build up investment bodies in your organization because money is limited. Big companies tend to say, you ask for it, he asked for it. So who do I give? So who is more important? So if you can pull it together and say, okay, this flora can be found here, here, here. Let's say your consortia is a good place where the Diplocrops is regionally. And I think this was one of the things that we had started with BGCI in one of the meetings that we had. So why stay silo? Work together, because you all have a particular family or a particular genus or species that is threatened. So by working together, they could come up with assessments, and then this gives and then they don't just say loss, but you also need to find what's the uses of this plant for it to go missing. So what happened? So for timber, they said, so there is the qualitative facts that goes into why this plant is important. So how many billions of dollars you get from timber. And then if you keep cutting, where is the next timber coming? Who's going to give you the timber? And it takes years to grow one big, long, tall tree with a good trunk for harvesting. So these are kind of things they need to talk to the corporation. So this is where the consortia should when BGCI tries to reach out, they try to talk, but not 100%, but they still try to make it to come back into the community. What the community will gain if you conserve this, if instead of when you lose it. So make it a positive, like, okay, you do this, this is what is going to be gained. And then they will try to sponsor training. So for Darwin, they seem to be more for training. So they can give money for training. So they are quite good at giving training. So BGCI will be the one that initiates the training. And then as they have they are now housed in, like the office is in Singapore Botanic Gardens. So, and Singapore has enough good centrally located, and we have all the facilities, and so it's easy access for you to do training in Singapore. Albeit a bit expensive, but it's still doable. And so we also have good contacts with other botanic gardens overseas, not just regionally. So we could bank, like we recently had this cryo conservation of exceptional species. So BGCI had the money. They came to talk to me and all that. Discuss. It's like, we have a new seed bank. So they say, well, why don't we have a training here? Then, because we are in an infancy for our seed bank. So we started looking at who can we engage that does major work in cryopreservation of seeds. So we started looking at Cincinnati Zoo and all that. We found a few people, and we knew Western Australia, Kings Park was also very involved in seed conservation and cryopreservation. And then we also figured out, okay, Southeast Asia is not all rich like Singapore, so unfortunate, but other places are rich in biodiversity, but not rich in money, but we are rich in money. But the biodiversity is also quite good. We managed to keep it alive. So we started to look at other countries like New Zealand, and then during one of the conferences, I had heard this lady from New Zealand. So she was doing some work using basic science, but still doing cryopreservation without the kind of $1 million facilities. So we talked to her. We fashioned our training to say cryo on a budget. So it's like, it was successful. She was able to highlight how you can still do cryopreservation in your small country. You don't need super big facilities, but she did highlight the key expensive chemicals that is required. For instance, the liquid nitrogen, definitely, the vial, the viewer that keeps it. These are the things that we need to look. So the money is not that expensive. The others, you don't really need a fancy big institution to grow. So she was saying she worked in one of the small rooms to start up this cryopreservation.
So to make do with what
would make do. So this is what I always tell when we have meetings in Southeast Asia. They always see, okay, they will take SVG, Q, Edinburgh as the ideal. Everyone's, yes, go ahead, keep that as the ideal, but also temper it with reality and what you have. So you work in stages. You can't just jump to become the best. For us, 165 years, that's a long way to get to where we are now. So for you, it's like 65 years. So it's not an overnight success. You pump in the money, you become Singapore, the next Singapore Botanic. There's no such thing.
No. We have any questions from the floor? So we start.
Hi, Bonnie, have a affiliation. My question is about the conducting research in Southeast Asia. One of the most difficult part is getting permits, and like you mentioned earlier, it's indeed frustrating. So how should we deal with permits in order to have this international collaboration? Because in my experience, like getting permits is very difficult in my country, in the Philippines. So should we relax the permits in the region, and like, for example, giving research passes to universities, botanic gardens, something like that?
So for that, I'm always asking that question as well, because I find it's just ridiculous, because most of the regions permit issuance authorities are not in the botanic gardens or people who are actually doing botanical work. So they are more administrators. So, and there is this false sense of, if you take my plant materials or animal materials out, you're going to make money and I'm not going to get anything. So there's that fear and of losing out if I throw it out to you, and then you do better with my materials, which is not 100% true lah. So it's like I said, the CBD and the asset benefit sharing regulations and framework it is good, but because of the way things are being interpreted by administrators who are not in the science line, they pick up things that, oh, you can make money out of this, or oh, this is, you run away with my material and you make money. But does anybody ever tell them that biopiracy is not an overnight thing? Like, say, for instance, even if things get illegally out, it takes years before the final product is in the market. And the final product may not be the material that you started out with, but it's an extraction of certain chemicals in that plant that was the active ingredient that needs to be biosynthetically built to create the pharmaceutical materials that you need. So it's like, it's not an overnight process, but people think, oh, but then you lose out, because you're not allowing people to do research on your plants. There could be new cures because we cannot do the work. And let's say, sorry to say, but let's say Philippines doesn't have the facilities to do this kind of chemo stuff, and let's say someone from America, Botanic Gardens has this ability, or a university has this ability. You should be smart enough to allow, but for basic science. But make sure that it doesn't go beyond basic science. Once it goes beyond basic line, they must come back to you. So your material transfer agreement, which is the CBD's, some of the things that they have written there, is to make sure that you go back to renegotiate what you have taken out and what you have found to be of use, and then talk back, discuss, and decide what kind of benefits do you need in return to give you the permission to move it to the next level, the next phase. So there's this joint lah, basically. This like administrators thinks, oh, it's immediate. I take the plant, I extract, I get a new chemical, new material for business. But it takes a while to develop. Then traditional knowledge, you must acknowledge that this is important because traditional people have done hundreds and thousands of years using certain things. But to safeguard this, you need to document this. There's nobody coming in to document this. There's no botanist that is active these days. This is a science that is lost, I think. So no university has this. Maybe Sabah, I think there's one guy doing it, but there's no university anywhere that actually does biodiversity work. And then I think there's Rodrigo formerly from Q. He's doing a course right now happening, I think last week or something, on ethnobotany. So he's trying to merge all this taxonomy with ethnobotany, CBD. So it's like, these are the kind of training that needs to be done, not just for you, the scientists, but for the general people, administrators as well. So you could invite pharmaceutical students, you could invite business students to come and sit for this kind of courses. So this gives them a better understanding. So if they become an administrator, it's like, okay, wait a minute, it's not that easy, it takes time. That's what I think. So, but permit, like you said, the permit is now being handled by somebody else. The permit is being handled by somebody that's not in the line, so it's a bit tough. And what we could do is try to connect with working people in the gardens or in the forestry department, and then make sure that they are one of the main lead in the project that you want to do, how you want to enter that particular spot. So they will be co-authors with you, not just allow you in, but to be co-author and do the project together. So that means it's a win-win situation where international and the local are actually doing the work. So there's less apprehensiveness from the authority to say, oh, this is just Singapore going in and we are not getting anything. So if there's a local guy who is going to be the co-project researcher, then maybe that gives them the, okay, someone from my local country is going to be part of this team.
Another question? So, Tilina.
Thank you, Doctor, for the nice presentation. I'm Tilina from HTBG. I'm a PhD candidate. So my question is more about like the Southeast Asian Botanical Garden Network. So the first priority for a botanical garden is actually to preserve the local endangered species. Beyond going that, does this each botanical garden, do they have their specific objective to achieve based on their location? For an example, in Singapore, I don't think many of the people go to the forest to harvest the wood for the firewood, but it may be another big issue in another region. So maybe in that botanical garden or the network in the particular country, one of the objective could be actually to promote the sustainable use of the forest. Or maybe in the Singapore, have the money, have the facilities. So maybe their priorities most like one of the priority maybe going to be like knowledge dissemination and training the community. So in the Southeast Asian botanical garden network, do they have such kind of specific objective based on the region or the locality?
I'm saying that it's not so cohesive, like I mentioned in my talk. It's like, it's there, but it could do better. So there is, let's just say the people who are supposed to be there, who makes the decision, always don't want to be there. So we are the working people. Working people can still proceed. So the working people are the ones that talking to each other. So what happens is like for Singapore Botanic Gardens is like we are known that we can do a lot of capacity building. So this is something that we work with. So for the region, each region is unique. Like we do have subsets of plants that is found in all majority of the countries there. But so taking an example, when we started the consortia for Dipterocarpaceae, we chose Dipterocarpaceae because it's first thing, it's one of the key trees that is lost most in the forests in Southeast Asia. Then we also know that for distribution range, so it's based on science also, what we have documented in all of floras, that this region, everybody will have some Dipterocarpaceae collection in their country, which is native. Then after that, it's like, okay, to conserve, how can this group that has this plant work together? So they started to think like, okay, let's do assessments first. So the assessments now have completed. So they have, I think recently, two years ago or something. So they have an assessment of all the species of Dipterocarps, both in this region. So it's kind of like helping you to, then from there, you start targeting species. And this is where they haven't moved on. So, okay, you know, this is lost, this is disappearing. How do you know about when is the fruiting and flowering? Okay, they say, oh, it's the standard answer is the masting season after 7 or 8 years. Okay, and then what causes this masting could be some environmental changes, you know, hot weather or whatever. So this basic knowledge is still iffy, you know, for all the species. And then you can't save all the trees, I'm afraid. We are only human, we are not God. So what needs to be looked into is like, what can you save? What targets that is most important in terms of human livelihood, you know, and in terms of like medicinal usage or human usage or a community's usage. These are the species that you should start looking in depth. So each region, unfortunately, will have to do it their own thing, but you are not alone. So if you are in a network, you could help each other and then try to reduce that bureaucratic requirements of permit. So you work together, and then where say Singapore is good at taxonomy and phylogenetic stuff, so we can come in to assist. Let's say Edinburgh has all the genetics stuff, like or something propagation or seed banking and all that. They can help you, something like that. Q can help you with that. So it's not just one player, but the whole world comes to help for that particular one plant. So it's not easy. It's not going to be a single fella playing God. It's like a whole community must come together. And then you need to also talk to the people of your country. Because if it's something important, you need to make it known to them. Because I think like some species in Indochina, they might not know So what's this Diplocrops that's missing? So nobody knows that it's important. They don't understand. The layman, everyday man that you walk, they may not know what you're talking. You have always been talking to those who already know. You've never spoken to those who don't know. Because it's very hard to speak to people who are not in your line. That's the easy way out. That's why you always talk to the converted. Not gonna happen. That's why we keep losing stuff. We are not talking to those unconverted people.
I'm being told that we have more than 2,400 people, 200 clicks on co-share. So just you know the scale in China is very interesting. Okay, so then we have the last question on the floor, and then I will do very quick some questions from online people. Yeah.
My question is regarding when you say there's not enough resources or manpower to help conserve the plants. Since you have done the assessment, you know which plants are being threatened. Would you welcome maybe those who have their own collection? They could be just retired and they have time and they can help cultivate, or maybe they could be universities with small plots of land and they want to start something. Would you encourage these people to come and join your coalition and support the work on the ground?
That's a good suggestion, and it's a possibility, but nobody is reaching out to those people, and those people don't know we exist. So if you talk to anybody who may grow a plant, if I ask them, have you heard about the Southeast Asia Botanic Garden Network? Like, what? Yeah. So it's like, there are organizations that are good organizations, but we don't seem to be able to reach the masses. And then we tend to keep to ourselves. We're quite comfortable with our own little team or people that we always know. We never move forward. We never move out of our box. So we could be talking to you, the animal science people, which might be very important for pollination of the plants that is dying. We are noting this, but there's nobody to help us to do because we are too concentrated in like documenting the plants. But it's all about working together. So like I said, if you are going into expedition in the old days, if you look at how the old days, even if you take colonial time wasn't that great, but they had the right mind when they go for field expedition. It's not just one type of person or specialty that goes into the field. They bring along the animal people, the ethnobotany, entomologists, and all this kind of people come together. And then this is an opportunity where you are exploring a new area or a known area to relook at it in a different view, where we will say, yeah, your plants is pretty good, but the animal person doesn't say, no, my animals are not that much here. So what happened here? What happened? Why is there lots of flora, but what happened to the animals? So there might be some plant which was key to this animal that is missing, but so the botanist, the numbers looks good, everything looks fine, it's still healthy, but the plants that supports the animals that's declining might not be captured.
We have 4 questions online, but we don't have time to take all the questions. I want to just read them for the sake of putting on the air, and then maybe you can do a quick answer to one of them. So the questions are very similar. One is about how do you see the future of conservation, plant conservation in Southeast Asia? And this is the question I would like to ask you is, what kind of technology do you think would be most important to help to do plant conservation? But before answering, we have 3 more questions about sustainable use. So how we can make compatible economic development and conservation, plant conservation and sustainable use of plants of economic value or value for people. The question is very similar, how we can deal with the conflict between conservation and local use. So then, because these are big questions, what do you think about technology? You can choose any technology. What things you would like to be able to do with new tools, new...
AI is something that's fast becoming quite a monster in itself. So we could very well in 100 years or no, not even 100 years, maybe 50 years, do away with taxonomists. If you have enough capturing of digitized images of all the plants that you do, you could learn to identify. Because in science, now currently even the taxonomists are losing ground because it's it's a very traditional observational morphological study. What has been gaining momentum is the genetics of it, but the genetics of it doesn't help me to, I'm on ground and I'm looking at this plant. What is the name of this plant? That doesn't give that. So AI, because youngsters are really into that now. So, and then a lot of us are always on glued with our handphone and taking pictures every time we see a plant. So if that can be compiled into what you call a clearinghouse, and if there is enough good programmers and botanists and taxonomists working together, they could extract. So I had a talk that I attended where they use drones even to go into remote areas, and then because they had identified the species of plant, right, so they could see the structure. So with that, they could quickly glimpse through the drone image, and then from the cliff that they couldn't climb down, they could roughly see, okay, this species is still okay, it can still find, and then they can go down physically later. So these are the technology that we should be working together with.
AI and imagery.
Yeah.
Professor Jumping, have any insight?
Yeah, I would say it's by technology or your technology for the cryopreservation. In the tropical area, I always found that it's difficult for use the traditional the banking the seed banking system. So most of the tree you cannot preserve it in the seed bank. So how to we can develop it's a like it's a technology to preserve the tissues and the stem cell and in the nitrogen liquid nitrogens they contain. So this is a yes, I know it's exactly I once worked in the Premier Institute of Botany. We have the seed bank. But when I joined to the XBG, I realized that the number of it's a valuable tree. Actually, it's you cannot preserve the seeds in the -20 degree. So how to use is a more efficient technology to preserve those tree species. This is I think I was concerned, and they should be have some the better or efficient not technology, like it's the how to they present extract and also preserve the standard cell of the plant. This is our thinking.
So maybe in a few years we can get together and discuss about how AI has replaced some of our text taxonomies that we have to work with the machines, and how we're able to preserve many more seeds. So thank you very much, Dr. Nura. Thank you very much, Professor Yang. And thank you very much to the audience. So then the next webinar is scheduled for the 3rd of December.
We have the 2 days to discuss.
So then this seminar is part of the Southeast Asia Biodiversity Workshop. And I think many of the topics that you presented in your presentation, many of the challenges, collaboration, capacity building, all the things are things we'll be discussing here over the next couple of days. So looking forward to your participation in these discussions. Again, thank you very much for the good discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.